course, Evan is our newly elected president of Ruach Israel as of January 1st. So, yeah. And so I've been looking to...
When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes in American history. In this week's Parsha of the Exodus from Egypt and the parting of the sea is one of my all-time favorites from biblical times. Juxtaposing the two, I imagine similar thoughts of the early Americans were going through the heads of Moses and the people of Israel at the time of the Exodus. Last week, Dave eloquently, however, pointed out that it's not about freedom, but it's about being free to serve. Instead of slaves to Pharaoh, we are slaves to God. Isn't this the basic crux of humanity? To be free, to be unencumbered, and then in that moment, to give ourselves to God? It truly is the ultimate luxury of freedom, to worship. There's another human condition, to forget and to take the easy way and to give up. But an endeavor, one as monumental as standing up for one's right and declaring such a thing as freedom, especially in the face of a very real existential threat, is not meant to be easy. The Labells are an adventurous kind of family. Whether it's vicariously through the reading of Tolkien or C.S. Lewis, or trekking up a 4,000-foot mountain in New Hampshire, or just day tripping to the beach, we love an adventure. They're just not easy. To succeed, the vision, the cause, has to be significantly greater than the current circumstances or encumbrances. Otherwise, we give up when things get a little difficult. How many times after leaving Egypt, after witnessing the 10 plagues and all of the miracles of Hashem, did we lament or complain or even disobey? Just in this week's readings, as Gloria read to us, we heard from Exodus 14:11. They said to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us to die in the desert? What is this that you have done to us to take us out of Egypt?" From Exodus 15:24, the people complained against Moses. Chapter 16, verse 3, we read, "The children of Israel said to them, 'If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat, when we ate bread to our fill. For you have brought us out into the desert to starve this entire congregation to death.'" And then in verse 20, "But some men did not obey Moses and left over some of it until morning," talking about the manna, "and it bred worms and became putrid, and Moses became angry with them." So bringing a correlation to today, Anna and I have started a project to hike New Hampshire's 48 4,000-foot mountains. That's a good-looking kid there. This past 9/11, there was a program called Flags on the 48, where groups of people hiked the various peaks in New Hampshire, and at noon, hoist flags in a show of remembrance of the tragedy from 2001. We've done some other hikes, Anna and I, but this is our second 4,000-footer, and we decided to hike Mount Jackson, which would be our hardest hike so far. During that hike, I can't remember how often Anna and I thought to ourselves, or even said aloud, "Are we at the top yet?" During the summer, we like to have a day at the beach, but every year, we as a family have to remember that a day at the beach requires planning. Our route, what beach to go to, what food to bring, the logistics that goes with that, with the ice and the coolers, what activities to prepare, etc. Even a day at the beach isn't easy, per se. So God, through Moses, had to keep reminding the people that he had a plan. That vision had to be reminded to us. We know that at the top of the mountain, or the memories made at the beach, or the destruction of the Ring of Power on Mount Doom leave an indelible mark that help to make us who we are. But it's the vision, and in the case of the Exodus, God's intentional difficulty that gets us there. It's not easy, and God knows that. He wanted to leave that indelible mark on us. This time, it's not one just for a generation, but one that was so great that it would transcend time and place, one to be passed down through lineage and millennia. Like other lamentations our people have gone through, God is the one who made it hard. This is how I'll demonstrate his blessing. Exodus 13:17 says, "When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. The reason for this was twofold. One, because, quote, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt, end quote. The other is because it started their journey with obstacles, but the challenges not being too great at the outset, where they could still see their vision." So, what's the common thread? What truisms from 5,000 years ago still hold true today? What is figuratively in our DNA that we'll never get rid of? In coming to grips with my understanding of the passage, and in looking through the research and teachings of others, Adam Lieberman best summed it up for me, stating, "The reason for all this is due to two internal, distinct, and powerful drives that God gave as a gift to us all. One drive wants to change the world, climb the highest mountains, and leave the planet in a radically and more improved place than it now exists. The other drive will then challenge, question, and doubt every part of this journey and try with all its might to prevent you from never accomplishing anything." We've all felt that. And this is true of us in all things big and small. Look at some of our common New Year's resolutions that start with the best of intentions. Lose weight through exercise or dieting. Find a new career. Learn a new skill like knitting or sign language. Look at the noble promises that we made to ourselves during our period of isolation this last couple of years. I'll paint the house. I'll finally clean out the attic. I'll write more letters. I'll do more Bible studies, whatever. How many of these endeavors ultimately fail, and can we prevent that from happening? How many ultimately succeed? Once that first obstacle gets in the way, like, boy, it's really cold out there and going for a run doesn't sound like fun to me right now, we lose the way, we procrastinate, or we even give up altogether. So why does God do this to us? Why, in his infinite power of creation, did he put such dichotomous feelings in us? We are blessed with an almighty, all-powerful God who, when the greatest challenges present themselves in our lives, he shows us his face to us and shines a light on our path. From Philippians 4:13, teach us that I can do all this through him who gives me strength. While climbing the literal mountain, the vision of what it would look like sustained Anna and me through the difficulties. And those difficulties then made the appreciation of the views from the top all the better. If we drove to the top of Mount Jackson on 9/11 of last year, we would have said that the views were spectacular. We would have enjoyed them for a while, We would have snapped a few pictures, then driven back down the mountain, warm and comfortable, not sore, right? But having done an incredibly challenging hike, taking a couple of hours, suffering through blisters, and having the hardest part then be right at the top with a scramble on our hands and knees, were we able to greater appreciate all that the mountain had to offer while recovering our breath. Look at this picture. As beautiful as it is, you can never experience what we did that day by looking at that picture. We got to stay and see the flags on the 48 raised on several mountaintops from our vantage point. We basked in the sun, even though it was quite cold. And we basked in the shared travail with dozens of others who hiked the same hike with the same perceived outcome. 2 Timothy tells us, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. That just exudes joy and gratitude. It was hard for the people of Israel to see what freedom would actually be like. They'd been enslaved for 400 years. While God, through Moses, tried to impart that vision upon them and prove the value of it through his signs and wonders, he knew that when things got tough, that they would turn back. He knew that they would rather face going back to slavery than face war. So he led them in a different direction with his pillars of smoke and fire, and demonstrating that every time they faced yet another challenge, he proved them that he was there for them. So why does this desire to quit feel so deeply embedded within us? It almost seems like a design flaw, but maybe it goes back to freedom. The key is to recognize and know that it's there so that you can see and identify that you have your own internal conflict and that it can be an opportunity for you to overcome it and improve. When we recognize this within ourselves, we can see it for what it actually is. It's a test. Our own personal challenge that no one in the world has or can understand or help you through. It's an opportunity to overcome our fears, our objections, in order for us to improve and be the best version of ourselves that we can be in his image. When we see the desire to quit in ourselves, we get to give ourselves to God, to draw strength from him, and use that as fuel to push through and win in our own little challenges. And we're not just talking about climbing mountains. We're not just talking about going to the gym. This happens to us every day. And every day we have the choice to push past it, to take charge of our fears and of our emotions, and to win. For some people, it's big things, like a lost job or the ill health of a dear loved one. Right? For some, it's truly little things that just don't always feel little. Like, it's a lot easier to have a bowl of cereal in the morning than it is to make a smoothie for breakfast, even though it's not as healthy. We have that choice, but sometimes it's not easy. And that sense of difficulty or challenge is always there within us, but giving us that opportunity to overcome it and feel some relief. Just the other day, Rebecca and I were talking about our home and commenting on the improved state of the house. Like most families, I'm sure the joiners have no idea what I'm talking about, we go through periods of messiness and disarray and go through times of order. Right now, the state of the house is actually in relative order, although it'll likely be short-lived. Actually, it already is short-lived. This is written a few days ago. So we cleaned up a hallway that hadn't been cleaned up in a long time. We put stuff away in the attic. We had the bedrooms and the main floor in a state of relative cleanliness. And Rebecca said to me, I haven't given up yet. I haven't given up yet. I think back to that statement, and I think there was a lot more unsaid than just that. The implied statement is that we will forever have challenges, whether it's a messy kitchen or dog hair everywhere or laundry. There is always laundry and dirty dishes or cleanup from whatever activity or a leaky faucet or a lawn that needs to be mowed. but we can choose to give in, or we can choose to never give up. Recognizing that these challenges will always be there, we are choosing to drive on and not give up. God gave humanity a great gift in our fear of improvement, one that demonstrated itself so eloquently 5,000 years ago when we left Egypt and immediately faced roadblocks, immediately faced challenges that lasted 40 years in the desert, and we complained, and we did ridiculous things like build the golden calf. But we kept driving on, something that has sustained us throughout the millennia, like when Ahasuerus ordered the destruction of the Jews in Persia, or when the 19th century Tsar forced us from Russia, or with the atrocities perpetrated against us in Europe less than 100 years ago. He gave us this opportunity within us to recognize our fears within ourselves and our so-called flaws as God-given benefits so that we can take on life, meet every challenge, and strengthen our faith in Him and allow Him to work in us so that we can be our absolute best and we can survive. Isaiah reminds us, but for those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will not run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. But where does our freedom truly lie? Not only in taking on whatever obstacle impedes us from achieving our goals, but in recognizing these things in ourselves and others and shining His light onto others. Internalizing that God-given freedom and using that inherent power to keep focus on Him, to be slaves to Him in a holy, giving, and selfless way, where we give ourselves to Him and His purposes and model for others to see and to feel the honor of knowing Him through our good deeds and kind hearts. That is freedom, and that is the best reflection of God that there is. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, yeah. Great job. Yes. Thank you, Evan. Terrific message. Wonderful. Yes. Never give up. I love that message. It is so true. You have inspired. We were just musing about going backpacking again as soon as it warms up. Get out in the woods. And I love that message, especially as we're home round the clock, eat, sleep, poop, cry. You know, it's like we need that message. So thank you. And I'm sure Raina really encouraged that. It appreciated that too. So thank you, Evan.